Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Spooky AF. My name is Rob. I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by my co-host Suze. Suze, how are you?
Oh, I'm here, which I think is also where you're at.
Oh, very much so. So, Suze and I met up yesterday with our respective partners, and we actually went for a walk around Maynooth University. There's a nice throwback episode if you want to know about Maynooth University. Go listen to it. I think it's episode 6 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we walked around Maynooth University, went for a drink afterwards then. Like, singular drink at that, I will emphasize.
Well, yeah, because it was the pre-food drink, so you couldn't go over
and
the
it was
top.
lovely.
Yeah, it was lovely. And then we ate an.
Yeah.
Well, then your partner ordered an unholy amount of sushi.
She did. She went hard with the amount of sushi that she ordered.
But no, it was great.
And to be fair, your husband and I both also got a horrific amount of salt and chili chicken.
Yes, he did. Yeah, you both ordered the same meal.
Yeah, we both just had this look in our eyes. We both just made eye contact and was like, we know what we're about to do to this place, and it's fine.
Yeah. So we went for food, and then it was great. Yeah, and then we were walking back, and so it was getting near, like, closer to my bedtime, because I get up at like 5 a.m. so I needed to get home. So we walked to the train station, and then we left y'all, and apparently y'all just went nuts.
Yeah, basically. So what happened was, we left you off, and then my brother sent me a message, and he's like, don't suppose you're around Maynooth at the moment, are you? I was like, as it happens, yes, I am. And he was like, do you want to come meet us for a drink? Also, just to preface, Ireland has been in eternal darkness and rain since about July 2022.
Yep.
So yesterday there was, and actually today as well, there's this giant fiery ball in the sky that we don't usually see that often.
And we don't know what to do with.
So we don't know what to do with it. So naturally, everyone was drinking. So my brother messaged me. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And we went out for a few drinks. And I am quite delicate today. So this will not be a high energy podcast for me today. And anyone listening, do not expect the highest quality commentary from me either, because you will not get it here.
Just we're laying the gauntlet down early, so like this is the exit ramp. If you would like to leave, do it now.
Yeah. You've got fair warning. I also had that panic that I get now when I'm hungover, where I remember reading somewhere about 5 years ago online that either paracetamol or ibuprofen make your hangovers worse, but I can never remember which one it is.
Oh, seriously?
So it's like Russian roulette every time I have a hangover, where I'm like, which one is it? And naturally, I'm not going to look it up when I'm hungover. So this morning, ibuprofen won. So
okay.
We'll see how that goes.
Well, I'm always, like, I don't really drink anymore much at all. But when I do, if I am hungover, I used to just hit codeine. Because I felt like the world was ending.
So far, it seems to be good. And also, to be fair, I gotta, thank my wife. She also made some pancakes.
Oh, lovely.
So she saved me, basically. It was a dark time this morning waking up.
But you're here and you're we're going to talk about spooky shit?
I'm so excited to talk about spooky shit. You can hear it in my voice just how excited I am. Measure your expectations, everyone. But yeah, I am here to talk about spooky shit. And actually, it's an appropriate thing that I'm talking about today. So, Suze, I know you said that you don't really drink anymore, or that kind of like going out kind of late nights and stuff like that. But I'm assuming when you do, or when you used to when you were in college or whatever, and you'd be having a few drinks, naturally you'd also, I would assume, be quite into going out dancing as well. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, well, yeah, I was a woman in my 20s. Hell yeah.
Yeah, the most like white girl dancing you can possibly do. I'm 100% there as well. Like my inner white woman comes out when I have a few drinks in me.
Oh yeah, we crave the beat.
We do. We absolutely do. As soon as Mr. Brightside by the Killers comes on, that's me gone. Like,
well, that's okay.
There's no
Mr. Brightside by the Killers coming on, especially when you're drunk in a club, is like it's like a transcendent experience.
It is that, or Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Oh god,
either of those songs, and I'm in.
Yep. Oh yeah, everybody's out the dance floor just screaming, losing their minds.
Yeah, I'm in, and that's me then for the night. So I do love a bit of dancing, and I know you do as well.
Yeah.
But have you ever danced so much that you've felt kind of concern or like fear that you're dancing too much?
Oh my god, are we talking about the dancing plague?
We absolutely are.
Oh fuck me, I am so happy right now.
So as people have seen from the title of this episode, we are talking about the dancing plague of 1518.
Oh, so good.
And this is honestly, I think, one of the weirdest things I've ever read about. It's not like a mad out there episode like what we've been doing recently. But the actual events of what happened is just so weird. Like, it's just bizarre.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, I think it's more the fact that people still... Well, actually, I won't give any spoilers, but it's a weird one. So, obviously, you know about this, Suze.
Oh, I do.
From your reaction.
But I'm really looking forward to hearing, because I know of it, and I generally... But I know you've got some details and specifics that I probably don't have.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, well, I hope I do. Because... My brain hopefully will make its way through all these notes today. So the dancing plague of 1518 was this, to call it a peculiar event is an understatement, but we'll stick with it. Peculiar event that took place in Strasbourg in what is now modern day France. Yep. Strasbourg has kind of exchanged hands between France and Germany over the years, but it's currently a part of France. Interestingly, during 1518, this was during the time of the Holy Roman Empire, which is just one of those things that I always kind of forget about. But it existed for a long, long time.
Oh yeah, and then if you like those fucking mad maps of the Holy Roman Empire, because they were made up of so many different like principalities and duchies and all these things, like they're just insane. It looks like somebody spilled nerds onto a piece of paper, and we're like, basically, that's how we're doing this.
Yeah, I don't know how they made it work for so long, but they did. So you got to give it to them. Maybe it's just that kind of German efficiency really coming through. But yeah, it was Strasbourg at the time was part of the Holy Roman Empire, and it's now part of modern day France. So in July 1518, a woman named Frau Troffa was going about her business in the market square in Strasbourg, just, being a 16th century woman living in Strasbourg, whatever that entailed. When all of a sudden people started to notice that she started kind of moving in a funny way and then stepped out into the street and started to dance. And she continued to dance, and people were kind of a bit perplexed by this. Right. They couldn't figure out what was going on. And she, every time they they were all looking at her, like obviously a crowd was gathering. And they initially were kind of just looking at the spectacle of a woman dancing and kind of all like laughing or taking part and such. But then as crowds started to like leave and stuff, she was still dancing. And when people started to get concerned for her, they tried to stop her. And as soon as they'd let go, she'd continue dancing. So she was doing this kind of uncontrollable dancing in the street. She continued to dance until she literally collapsed from exhaustion and basically was unable to like respond to anyone, was in such a catatonic state from being like so exhausted from dancing that like her feet and everything were like worn raw and everything, like, and she was just not in a good way. But people assumed that was the end of it. Right. But then when she recovered, immediately was back up and started dancing again. So this started to cause a bit of concern. People did not know what was going on, and they were just kind of like, what is going on with this woman? They kind of assumed that she was maybe insane or like possessed or something. They didn't know what was going on. But then within a week, 30 more people were afflicted with the same compulsion to dance.
It was that many?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So within the space of a week, it went from this one woman, Frau Troffa, dancing in the street to another 30 people all dancing as well, uncontrollably, and seemingly just unable to just control their movements at all. All they were able to do was dance. Right. So then so we were in July, now moving into August 1518, the numbers continued to steadily increase and reportedly got up to about 400 people within the month.
400? Jesus.
So 400 people were just uncontrollably dancing in the streets of Strasbourg and were just unable to stop themselves from doing it. And it was the same pattern of dancing to the point of exhaustion, collapsing, recovering, getting up again, dancing again, collapsing. So it's this like really cruel cycle of just rinse and repeat of dance, collapse.
Okay. I have thoughts.
Okay, yeah, give me your thoughts.
Okay, yeah. So not to interrupt you, but so like my first thought is this the first, like, do you remember in the, I guess it was maybe like the 2010s, that like flash dances were really popular?
The Harlem Shake.
Yes. And so that's my first thought. My second thought is like, I'm just having this, like, my mind is putting a soundtrack to this dancing, and it, like, with this idea of them dancing to exhaustion and, like, catatonia and then, like, coming back, I just keep thinking of, like, somebody's playing, like, TikTok by Kesha on repeat, and the minute they hear, like, brush my teeth with the bottle of Jack, they're, like, up and about again. So.
Yeah, honestly, like, I can think of some belters that would probably get me up consistently to do this. I previously mentioned Mr. Brightside would definitely be one of them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, kind of anything actually by The Prodigy. I imagine they'd be pretty good. Like, you'd be up there. Some, like, early Fatboy Slim stuff as well.
Oh, yeah, I'm an emo child at heart. Like, if you threw on some, like, Fall Out Boy or some Panic at the Disco or Taking Back Sunday or something, I'd be up and about.
I just imagine.
Oh my
You're
God.
just sitting there, and all of a sudden you just hear, "Where are you?" You turn around and Suze is gone.
Yes.
She's like,
I was just thinking, dance, dance, we're falling apart. They're like, oh yeah, that's that. Well, okay, so now I'm also having the thought of, like, they're obviously dancing in a period appropriate style that can be identified as dancing. Whereas if it were happening today, like, would people just, like, drop into a twerk? Or, like, uncontrollably twerking?
The twerking plague of 2024.
Oh God. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Not to be confused with the slut drop of 2010.
Oh my God. Who doesn't remember the slut drop?
So yes, it was a clear kind of style of dancing. Like it was dancing of the time, basically. So it was recognizable as dancing.
Yeah.
So naturally, people were a bit confused and frightened by this and didn't really know what was going on. And the authorities didn't know what to do. So naturally, they turned to the religious authorities as well to see what they would have to say about this.
Oh yeah.
And it was decided that the solution to this, to help these poor people, was to make them dance more.
Wait a minute. What? Wait, how do you?
Yeah.
Wait. Sorry, I know we're both not firing on all cylinders, but I'm having a real hard time of them being like, is it like Superman flying where he just, like, punches the air harder to go faster? Is it like, so just move your body more?
Yeah, basically. So I don't know the logic processes that they needed to go through in their brain to come to jump to this conclusion, but it was ultimately decided that more dancing was the cure for this.
Okay, all right.
So there were entire guild halls were basically created and arranged for the dancers, and they brought in musicians. Like, they hired musicians to play music and brought in professional dancers to help the afflicted continue dancing.
You mean like pacers in a marathon? Like,
basically, yeah, 100%. Like, so how do you think? So just very quickly, do you think this helped, Sis?
Well, I think it might. Well, I'm just imagining these professional dancers they brought in that were like, no, you lead with your left foot on this one.
You fucking amateur.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't a Viennese waltz, you absolute dipshit. But no. So did it help? I absolutely see their logic in thinking that, because this was very much the time, if I'm not mistaken, of like, oh, they're sick, let's remove blood from their body to see if it helps.
Yeah, yeah. That's a fair point.
Like, this is very much the time of, like, if you're going through hell, keep on walking. So
yeah, pretty much. So in a word, did this help? No. Unfortunately, it did not help. So this approach actually exacerbated the situation, and some of the participants ended up dying from exertion.
I mean, oh my God, Rob, is this not the origin story of the film Footloose? Is this why the town was so against dancing?
Holy shit.
I didn't realize I was going to make this big of, like, a realization. I am so controversial yet brave.
My God.
Uh-oh, hold on. Little red dot on my forehead.
You better get that tinfoil hat out, Sis, because you've just uncovered something.
Red string all over the map.
This goes all the way to the top.
This is literally 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, absolutely it is. That's canon now for me, to be fair. This is literally what led to Footloose, the true events. That was the documentary that is known as Footloose.
Oh no, these are true facts we are spitting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what this podcast is known for. talking about the truth.
Talking about the truth.
Yeah. So yeah, as I said, this made the situation worse, naturally, because, causing these already exhausted people to dance more absolutely will not help this. So... No. They died.
Yeah.
Some did anyway. So that was August, and then getting into early September 2018. Then the whole hysteria around this began to kind of abate, and the dancing effectively came to an end as mysteriously as it had begun. So just for timeline, this started in July, and by early September, it's gone. So this naturally caused many questions to be asked. The answers of which people still are not sure about today. But at the time, the dancing plague was the most thoroughly documented and probably the largest, I suppose, documented occurrence of this in Europe at the time. So in reading about this, I actually discovered that there actually were some other outbreaks of dancing in Europe between the 10th and 16th centuries. But this was the most widely documented, the most well-known occurrence of it. And I will talk about one other one later on, but this basically was the biggest one, so the most known about it. And I think it's just probably because of where it was placed, kind of in Strasbourg. It was quite an important area. Mm-hmm. I'd say that's probably got something to do with it as well. Geographically, it was probably just a hub of kind of people coming and going, so there was more people in place to record it, I suppose. So naturally, though, theories about the cause of the dancing plague came out at the time and continue to come out, and they are varied in their range. Would you like to guess what some of them might be, Suze?
Oh my god. Well, okay, I think I've heard of a couple of them but the ones I've heard of are more logical and kind of sociologically based or whatever. So, but I'm really excited to hear what you've got.
Yeah, so we're not here for logical
solutions
today. So the chief belief at the time was demonic possession.
Oh well, that's okay. Fair enough. Yeah, that tracks.
So the demonic possession theory was the one that took the most. It took the most traction at the time, and people were fully on board with this. So the theory of demonic possession, as an explanation for this, is basically, I suppose, rooted in the beliefs and understandings of the time. So during the Middle Ages, supernatural explanations for unusual events were common, and demonic possession was often cited as a cause for a wide range of unexplained phenomena, including epidemics of uncontrollable dancing.
Well, okay, this actually, I'm about to come out with another really hot take. So,
okay.
Demonic possession. All right, fair enough. I can believe in that simply because I grew up watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in which the musical episode, they are all singing because of a demon who has come to make them sing and dance until they die, essentially. So, I mean, all right, I'll get on board with it. Fair enough. If it happened in Buffy, I'm behind it.
Yeah, that's fair. You are drawing some serious links today.
I am really just on top of my game here.
Yeah, that comment you made at the start about not firing on all cylinders is clearly not true.
Well, I didn't want to put you to shame, but I did get up at 5 a.m. and go for a run.
Damn.
I know.
I certainly did not get up at 5 a.m.
We were having very different experiences of what 5 a.m. looked like this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 a.m. for me was a dark time. So I'm glad you can get on board with this.
Yeah.
So there was kind of some accounts at the time. A lot of people believed that the dancers had been possessed by demons and that this was the cause of it. Mm-hmm. However, some other people thought that, no, it's not a possession by a demon. That's silly. This doesn't make sense. Why would a demon do this? Instead, they were obviously, these people have been cursed, and they've been cursed by Saint Vitus.
They've been cursed by a saint?
Yes. So...
What?
Saint Vitus was considered the patron saint of dancers.
Right.
And also those afflicted with epilepsy.
Okay.
And somewhere in his lore, at some point, someone said that he could apparently choose to curse people to make them dance continuously.
What a jaunty little power.
Yeah. So this belief led to the idea that the dancers were suffering from a divine punishment or were under the influence of dark forces.
Okay.
So
what?
Yeah. So I'm glad you said you agree with this because we now have that locked in. That's recorded. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So naturally, as soon as people thought that it was demons or saints, you can probably see where this is going. The afflicted immediately were treated with exorcisms.
Of course they were.
Of which they didn't work, I will point out.
I'm also... So now I'm just... Okay, now the image in my head is of the little girl from The Exorcist, like tap dancing while... and her head spinning around while they're exorcising her.
Yeah. I can't disagree with you.
No, it's just an image in my head now.
Yeah, that's fair. That is quite the image as well. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Well, okay. See, the thing that I understand how they thought it was demons, and like the saint thing is weird, but religion is weird, so sure. But then the thing that gets me, which is now the standard I hold everything to since we've done the succubus episode, is why didn't they take the demons to court?
I don't think these demons requested the opportunity to defend themselves in court.
Okay.
To be fair.
Okay.
So, yeah, now to be fair, this was also the same area. Like, this is around the German kind of area at the time and a similar timeline. But these demons, I think, maybe they were more certain of their actions.
Yeah.
So they didn't request to represent themselves in court, unfortunately.
So they did like a slew of exorcisms and none of them worked.
Yes.
Okay.
So then the follow-on solution to this then was, okay, well, if the exorcisms aren't working, obviously that means then we need to take them on a pilgrimage.
They're going to dance their way to Mecca or something?
Yeah, so
dance their way to Jerusalem. Like, I'm just thinking of all the places you can go on pilgrimage, and it's like,
yeah, basically
you can't
they led
dance
a crusade
there.
of dancers.
Yeah, you can't. You shouldn't dance there.
Yeah. So they led them on pilgrimages to places dedicated to Saint Vitus.
Okay.
And
were they far?
Far enough, I think, but like also a viable pilgrimage for them.
Right.
So like not just down the road, but like
like a proper
far enough away.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a pilgrimage. Yeah. So they'd bring them there and they'd make them pray for absolution and an end to their dancing. And then part of this as well, part of the, I suppose, the lore of Saint Vitus demanded that they all had to wear red shoes, and that the red shoes had to be sprinkled with holy water, and then a cross would be painted on each of them.
This is just an alternative universe Wizard of Oz now.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of this, then they'd be given a small cross to hold during the pilgrimage.
Okay.
And this was supposedly a way to cure them, basically.
As they danced down the yellow brick road.
Yeah. So, weirdly enough with this, and I will get back to it later, so I'll leave you on a cliffhanger with this. Weirdly enough, this actually cured a lot of them. So, this whole pilgrimage and kind of, like treatment, I suppose, prayer that they went through, actually cured a lot of them. A lot of them immediately were starting to feel better once they did this.
Right.
And it kind of led to a lot of people saying, well, there you go, like clearly that's what it was. They were cursed by a saint and they prayed for forgiveness and were given it. There is a theory around that, and I will get back to it.
Okay. I mean, my theory is pretty simple. I think they got bored. I think they got bored and were like, all right, enough of this.
That's fair. That's more than fair. So moving on then to the next theory.
Yep.
This you will probably be immediately familiar with. I'm assuming you've heard of ergot.
Oh my god, get out of my brain. Yes, I've 100% heard of ergot.
Amazing. So there's an ergot poisoning theory here that suggests that the dancing plague may have been caused by the ingestion of contaminated rye bread that had a toxic fungus grown on it known as ergot.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is also like this theory has also been floated about, like, in particular, the Salem witch trials?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, majorly so. Like, this is basically one of the, I think, more agreed theories, apart from mass hysteria and things like that.
Yeah.
That ergot could explain a lot. And also on ergot, there was another town in the UK around this time that experienced sightings of demons and witches and things like that. And that has since been proven to have been ergot poisoning. That basically the town's entire supply of rye bread had gotten wet. The flour did.
Yeah.
And basically this town was famous for making rye bread.
I think this, I love this theory. Like, I think it's incredible to think that everybody was just really high.
On bread.
Yeah, on bread. Which is, I mean, as someone who eats a, like, unholy amount of bread, like...
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah. I trust me, I've been high on bread before.
Which is hilarious coming from two people who have in the past simultaneously tried doing keto.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look, this is it. There's a reason why I had to do keto.
Exactly.
So ergot, for anyone who doesn't know, I said it was a toxic fungus. It contains psychoactive chemicals very similar to LSD. And its consumption leads to hallucinations, convulsions, and spasms. So the ergot fungus, as I said, it grows on rye and other cereals, but it grows in particularly damp conditions. And I believe at this time in Strasbourg, they had quite a bit of rain. So it was kind of unseasonably wet at this point. And yeah, so that's kind of how people have kind of like jumped to this theory.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the symptoms of, I saw, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but people have described it as ergotism.
Oh, that can't be right.
I don't think so.
No,
but,
I don't think so.
I just wanted to include it in there. But symptoms of consumption of ergot.
Right.
When ingested, ergot can cause, as I said, hallucinations, delirium, and involuntary movements.
Yeah.
And at the time, these symptoms actually had a name because they didn't understand what was going on. These symptoms were actually known as St. Anthony's fire.
Oh.
So ergot poisoning was actually relatively common at the time that it actually had terminology around it, and people recognized it for what it was. So it's theorized that the afflicted individuals in Strasbourg may have consumed this obviously contaminated bread. The psychoactive effects of the ergot led to these bizarre and sustained dancing episodes, and that basically this is the reason for it, is that they weren't, it basically what the theory is that they weren't necessarily dancing, but it was more like spasming out of control effectively.
So
And it was interpreted as them dancing.
So they were doing like the Thriller dance.
Basically,
Yeah.
like in unison, yeah.
Yeah.
So this theory is a cool one. I like this one, but there are some issues with this theory.
Okay.
And the main one, the main, I suppose, problem with ergot is apparently if it's consumed in high enough quantities, the symptoms can actually lead to like people developing gangrene.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, and other like horrifically like severe physical effects.
Well, now I'm just thinking of like the clickers from The Last of Us.
The Last of Us, yeah. Yeah, like it basically, I didn't realize this. Apparently, it does lead to like gangrene and things like that. So, and that wasn't reported at this time.
Okay.
So it's an interesting one, and also like so ergot poisoning I think also does ultimately prove to be fatal, which wouldn't kind of necessarily make sense for these people. Instead, it kind of gave them the endurance to dance for extended periods.
Yeah, it sounds like were they doing ergot that was like cut with ecstasy or meth or something?
Quite possibly, yeah. It's a new type of ergot.
It was like a designer drug.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically like that. That a drug that they take in Mad Max Fury Road. You know, that like
yes.
silver paint that they have.
I am shiny, I am chrome.
Yeah. They were like fully ready to go. So
I dance, I die, I dance again.
yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting theory, but it's kind of flawed.
Yeah,
in it as well. So a lot of historians and scientists argue that the symptoms and duration of the dancing just don't align perfectly with known cases of ergot poisoning.
Right. Okay.
So theory 3, and I will say this probably the most believable theory, is that this was basically a case of mass psychogenic illness or mass hysteria.
Yep.
And this is basically the most widely accepted explanation for this. So, for anyone that doesn't know, this psychological phenomena, mass hysteria, occurs when there's a rapid spread of illness signs and symptoms affecting members of a group, it generally kind of originates from like a disturbance in a group, kind of involving like loss or, you know, like traumatic events basically that like can like cause groups to act in certain ways that wouldn't seem normal.
Yeah.
And this, I suppose, would explain perfectly a mass hysteria event. So some of the kind of the key items for mass hysteria is that mass hysteria takes place in incredibly stressful conditions. So Strasbourg in 1518 was actually experiencing a horrific period of significant hardship. So they had been dealing with famine at the time. There was apparently, like, the city apparently was rife with disease. And then on top of that, there was a lot of social unrest. So I saw a lot of accounts basically saying that, like, Strasbourg was an incredibly stressful city to live in at the time, and people were not happy.
Okay.
So naturally, the inhabitants of the city living in those conditions probably weren't in the greatest psychological state at this point anyway.
Yeah.
So then another symptom then of mass hysteria is kind of like people collectively taking part in a kind of like physical kind of like movements and things like that. It's like kind of like copying what others are doing. So obviously the dancers exhibited symptoms such as an uncontrollable urge to dance that had no clear physical cause. And this basically aligns with mass hysteria very much so, where symptoms are real but arise from a psychological stress rather than a physical disease. And then the way that this kind of works is that there's kind of a social contagion to this. Symptoms spread among the population via social contagion, where the sight of others dancing uncontrollably could have triggered similar behavior in onlookers, especially in such a tightly knit community that Strasbourg has kind of become at this point.
Yeah.
So purely by seeing someone having this kind of experience, this like deeply psychological, like stressful kind of situation, it can kind of almost trigger your brain into doing the same thing because you think that you're afflicted with it as well. Is kind of the theory there.
Well, actually, and if anybody's interested, just briefly, there's actually like a really good House episode on this where they're on a plane and a guy, and I think he's in first class, like starts exhibiting what they think is meningitis. And,
interesting.
And so, but then like, so loads of other people on the plane quickly come down with essentially like a lot of signs of meningitis. So they would be like fever, and they have this like weird rash on their back and all this other stuff that it could very easily not be meningitis, but it's been years since I've seen it, but I think it was something like meningitis anyway. But in the end, they figure out that actually he was suffering from like the bends because he had gone diving the day before and not like done proper whatever the fuck you do. And so, and then so, yeah. And so then suddenly, like they found that out and spread the word, and then everyone on the plane was like, "Oh, I guess I feel okay now," even though people were like on the verge of death.
That's hilarious.
So
that's such a House thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. So anyway,
I'm assuming House's theory as well, probably at the time, was that it was lupus.
It's always an STD or lupus.
Yeah.
It's like your wife cheated on you and you have an autoimmune disease. That is the story of House.
Yeah, basically. Great series, though. I do enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. But no, I just remember that because it being
cool.
a really interesting, like, kind of instance of this contained mass hysteria that led to them actually having these really kind of what you think of as
real
like
symptoms.
Real symptoms, yeah. Like what the brain can do is insane.
Yeah, and that's it exactly. So that is kind of with this theory. I think that it's such an interesting theory, and it's also kind of terrifying in that you can be completely fine, but as soon as you see this occurring, and if you're already in a kind of, as I said, like a psychologically like difficult situation, your brain can basically just like, it's almost just like a hard reset effectively, where it's just like this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It's like just a pure response to like what you're seeing in front of you. So what I mentioned earlier about the whole kind of like pilgrimage thing, this ties into this mass hysteria actually. So the dancing episode subsided obviously after a period of months, but what I mentioned earlier was that a lot of the dancers who had been taken to these shrines or pilgrimages to pray for absolution were in air quotes, cured. And this actually really helps the mass hysteria theory, because this could actually be seen as a form of psychological intervention.
Like you remove them from the context.
Yes, where it actually provides this kind of collective closure to the episode. So people are seeing them going to these shrines, they're praying, they're doing these things, and it's curing them. And so the theory is that basically that by removing them from the situation and bringing them to a specific place to treat them for it, that their brain is like, oh, well, I've been cured of this now because I've been brought here for this specific reason. And that then kind of spreads then once people start to hear they've been cured because they prayed to St. Vitus or whatever, that there's this kind of like collective kind of like kind of almost like tidal wave of cure like kind of like people being cured washing out then, where it's like as word spreads that this is what they needed to do, or people have just been cured, that the curse has been lifted, that it immediately kind of like triggers the brain to be like, oh, I'm also okay now.
Yeah.
So I find this fascinating, like this whole theory of, what I find fascinating is that like your brain can do this. This is what I find fascinating about it. Like it's It's terrifying.
Yeah, your brain can do this,
but
and we're
fascinating.
such fundamentally social creatures that will do, like, I mean, think about like episodes of groupthink and episodes of like people even like really stupid shit, like when back in, it was particularly in the 80s and 90s when, like, like Black Friday in America, like people stampeding into a Target to get a Tickle Me Elmo and shit. Like,
yeah.
But you just think about all the things that, like, your brain wants to do is make sure that you fit into the context in which you are located with other people.
Yep.
And so the lengths to which it will go to make that possible is insane.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like, it's kind of terrifying in a sense. Like, this to me is the most believable thing in that I could totally see people seeing this occurring and then being so panicked about it that it just kind of puts them into this state of just sheer fear and panic that all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, like, I don't feel okay either.
And like, it's so strong, it overrides the almost like your will to live. It becomes self-destructive, and it kind of almost overpowers like one of the strongest impulses you have, which is to survive.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And like, I think without getting too real, the very recent pandemic,
oh god,
that we went through, like, you did have a lot of people, and I definitely was one of them, that like, you had these people that as soon as they would have like a sniffle or a cough, or like, immediately you're thinking to yourself like, oh shit, I have it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's that kind of like heightened sense of fear or like security that you have, where you're just like, you're just waiting basically for it to happen. So I could totally see this occurring.
Oh yeah. Do you think it's occurring now? Sorry, I just had well, I'm just thinking of like, okay, this is because I'm an old person. I as an old person, I do not have a TikTok account or the app. I'm just thinking of like all these like dances that show up on TikTok, these dancing trends. I'm like, is this the modern day version?
It's the TikTok plague of 2024.
Yes.
I mean, I guess you could say that it could be this kind of like desire for people to like seeing something that's kind of like trendy and something that's happening, and they think that they need to do it as well to kind of fit in with the group.
Which I think is an element, like a big element of this, the case that we're talking about, is that not only are you afraid that there is like a sickness or a curse or something, but you're also like, well, like everything in your brain and body just wants you to be normal.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, well, if this is the new normal, like if Frau Taufe is like twerking in the middle of Strasbourg, then like maybe I need to as well.
Yeah, for sure. That is a scorching hot take from you.
I am full of just really hot takes.
TikTok is causing a modern day dancing plague. Sue's 2024.
The headlines of the blog I could write are just really out there today.
Yeah. As you casually sit down to consume more ergot.
Yes, as I shove wet rye bread into my mouth.
Yeah. So yes, this theory, I think it's the most plausible, but obviously we can't say with 100% certainty what happened centuries ago.
Yeah.
But this theory is more supported by the fact that similar episodes of dancing mania actually occur throughout medieval Europe, and often during times of stress and hardship, which could have induced this. So I will talk about one other outbreak, probably the other most famous one, I suppose. So as I said, it wasn't just in Strasbourg, but there were several similar episodes throughout Europe, particularly between the 14th and 17th centuries. There were some back in the 10th century, but the most frequent occurrences were between the 14th and 17th centuries.
Actually, oh, sorry, I just wanted to say really quickly, I actually think it just occurred to me something that has been like percolating in the back of my mind while we've been talking about this, is because I know we were just mentioning like why someone might, feel like why someone might participate in this. And I think one of the interesting things we can think about is the prevalence of like the dance macabre, the like this allegorical representation of death that was really popular during the late Middle Ages in art. And so it's often like people dancing with like corpses and skeletons, and it
dancing with death.
Yeah, and it denotes this kind of fascination and fear and like longing with and for death. And so I just think that perhaps there's also kind of I don't know, like a cultural. I just think the
kind of like subconscious,
yeah,
kind of cultural, yeah,
like the whole like connecting something as because if you think of dancing, you automatically think of like something like very very lively and an expression of being alive. But then to have it connected with death as well, like. Again, sorry, I've just got like a really big string of like spool of red string, and I am just tacking it on places.
We're now changing the title of the name of this podcast from Spooky AF to Intellectual AF.
Intellectual AF, oh god. Just intellectual hot takes.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of the title of this podcast, we, total segue, received a phenomenal bit of feedback from one of our recent episodes that I shared with Suze.
I laughed so hard.
It was say spooky as fuck, you cowards, not spooky AF.
Yeah.
So the person who left that bit of feedback, thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed reading that. So yes, this podcast is spooky as fuck for anyone that is uncertain.
Spooky as fuck. We die like men. Like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yes, getting back to the other case. Yeah. So in Aachen, in what is now modern day Germany, in 1374, this is probably the other famous occurrence. So this outbreak occurred on the 24th of June, 1374, and again within the Holy Roman Empire, which I love. Like we're now in 1374. Holy Roman Empire is still knocking about, which is great. So this, interestingly though, in Aachen is a bit kind of, it's more interesting in certain aspects. So this kind of hysteria from this quickly spread across modern day Germany, and it actually went into Italy as well. And there's reports that this actually affected tens of thousands of people. So, very same circumstances, people just dancing uncontrollably, just for no reason. And yeah, very, very same thing, like dancing to the point of exhaustion and then dancing again and things like that. But the cool kind of link to this leading to mass hysteria is that some historians have actually suggested that the dancing mania at this time might have actually been a psychological reaction to the devastation caused by the Black Plague.
I was about to say, we are hot in plague territory.
Exactly. So the plague obviously killed a significant portion of the European population, leading to widespread terror and chaos, which could have contributed to the mass outbreaks of dancing mania. And I can totally see this when basically like the majority of Europe has been effectively killed by the plague.
Yeah.
That like entire cities have like collapsed, like the ruling class have like collapsed. It basically as close to like apocalyptic conditions as you could possibly have. I could totally see this, the kind of cultural stress finally just breaking. So during these outbreaks, people exhibited kind of extraordinary behaviors. Some danced until they collapsed of exhaustion. Some danced basically until they died from exhaustion. Like they just kept dancing and eventually just collapsed like dead effectively. But then curiously, others displayed like odd reactions to colors. So they'd see certain colors and they'd like react very like strangely to them. They'd make like animalistic noises, and then also some engaged in like public nudity and as I saw it described online, various sexual acts.
Well, okay then.
And nothing else said of that.
Okay.
But then it was just the caveat of all of which were out of character.
Fair enough that's a fair reaction to like the apocalypse. Like 90% of the population of your city, for example, goes away, and you're like, you know what? Maybe I just want to shake my ass and have a shag. Like.
Yeah, exactly. Totally, I can completely see that. I could also just see people just being brought to like a breaking point mentally, where they just almost just become like primal in what they're doing.
They're just
like,
completely feral.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. So this is another kind of agreed, I suppose, circumstance of mass hysteria, basically taking over an entire population and people reacting to it accordingly. So just some numbers then. In Aachen, there were supposedly... So the thing about this, the numbers of people who died weren't actually properly accounted for. People were spending more time talking about the symptoms, and they didn't actually talk about deaths.
Okay.
So for Aachen, that outbreak in 1374, it's estimated that between 50 to 400 people died, which is a massive range, obviously, I know. But that's kind of the accounts. It's somewhere between 50 and 400. But during the Strasbourg outbreak, supposedly there were as many as 15 people dying every day.
Jeez.
Due to this non-stop dancing. And it was also, I know I said it was a period of like there was like a lot of like dampness at such up to that point. But when this was occurring, it was also right in the middle of the summer.
Okay.
So people were dancing outside in the heat and were dying from exhaustion.
Right.
So yeah, so just to say, like, there was supposedly up to 15 people dying every day, but there's nowhere to completely confirm that. That's just some of the numbers.
Okay. Which, I mean, I kind of get in the Aachen case, I think, because I think, at least my interpretation of why they might be more interested in the symptoms rather than the deaths is that because we are in, like, deep plague territory, like, there were so many deaths that, like, record keeping became, in some areas, like, impossible or very
Trivial
difficult.
at this
Yeah,
point.
like, why bother?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost easier to keep track of who's alive.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. And I would assume that's probably why that was the case. And then I would imagine probably in Strasbourg then it was more a focus on, they were already dealing with famine and disease and things like that. They were probably just viewing it as a, how can we fix this problem rather than let's track how many people are dying from it.
Precisely.
So that concludes it. So the dancing plague still to this day remains a mysterious event. Like there's no definitively decided reason for it. It's still a mystery and it will most likely remain a mystery going forward. But yeah, as I said, that concludes the story. That's where we are.
I am so glad we did that. Like that you did that one. It. I mean, the minute you brought up dancing, I was like, oh my god, is it the dancing plague? Because I've heard about this for a long time, but I didn't know some of the details. And I was just thinking, like, I'm thinking of, like, the music in my head that I would have going on, like, the soundtrack playing while I was dancing, and honestly, I could be dead exhausted, like, catatonic on the floor, and if I hear the piano opening to Welcome to the Black Parade, like, I will, like, rise from the dead, and, like, just, like, levitate to begin dancing again.
I think what we need to do is we need to ask our community to submit their dancing plague like number one song. We could do
a Spotify playlist of everybody's.
That's exactly what I was thinking. If we get enough people submitting songs to us, we will actually put together a community made playlist of songs for the dancing plague.
Yeah, songs that keep you alive while you're dancing to death.
Yeah, there's so many absolute belters out there, so please, I would love if people could submit them to us.
Oh god,
that would be phenomenal. But yeah, I love this case. I think it's amazing. It's just bizarre.
It's so it's so strange.
Yeah, but like I think it's more the kind of the mystery behind it is what gets me is that like we probably know what it was, but there's no definitive way of saying with certainty that this is what happened.
Yeah, what gets me is that I mean I'm very much on the side of it being kind of an instance of like what we're calling mass hysteria, but to me like mass hysteria in and of itself is so spooky and is so
it's terrifying.
It's so terrifying,
yeah.
Just like the lengths you will go to fit in, the links that your brain will go to convince you that you are either sick or you're like superhuman or all these different things like that, and how easy it is. Like you get a group of you don't need a huge group of people before they can start making like very dangerous collective decisions.
Yeah, 100%, like 100%.
Like just look at a group of teenagers at a shopping center, like.
Yeah, exactly, and it leads perfectly into something that my wife has said for years now. Is that she actually even said it yesterday? Of when a group of men get together, it doesn't matter how old they are or what they're doing; they collectively all turn into children again. And yeah, it's if you want to call that mass hysteria, yeah, absolutely. I can totally see
something
that.
My husband points out a lot is that we'll be walking about and he'll just look over and he'll be like, damn, you get a group of like 9 to 11-year-old girls together and all they want to do is like scream, hug, and cartwheel, like, regardless of where they are.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, it's just examples of I suppose just groups kind of all doing the same thing together.
Yeah. Oh, that was such a cool case.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I had fun looking up this one, and I'm shocked that I managed to pull myself through this entire episode without death basically coming for me.
Yeah, I feel like I need to apologize for because I was telling you yesterday that I had fallen down the rabbit hole of a theory on Reddit that all of Joss Whedon's shows and films are in the same universe. and I'd really gotten deep into it, and I think that like it activated my like hot take conspiracy brain. So this episode, I was just like, boom, 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 boom.
No, I'm all here for those theories, so please keep them coming. I truly appreciate them.
So yeah,
but yeah, I am glad that you enjoyed this. I enjoyed it too, and hopefully everyone listening has also enjoyed it. If you would like to reach out to us, please do. I would love to get your suggestions for a community playlist sent in to us. You could reach out to us on Instagram at the spookyaf pod, or you can send them to us via email on Gmail at the spookyafpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to get together a playlist and share it with everyone, and we can see who's bopping to what for their version of the Dancing Plague.
I feel like it might be the most incoherent playlist known to man.
It will be. It absolutely will be, and I'm all there for it. Like that just adds to it even more. But yes, I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you're having a great day, whatever it is that you're doing, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.
Bye, everybody.